Captain Elias was never the type of man who expected his life to turn into a strange story. He was a simple explorer, a human pilot who worked for a small company that mapped unknown moons and planets. His ship was not large, only built for one person, but it had been his home for many years. On a quiet evening in deep space, his ship entered the orbit of a green and blue moon. The surface was filled with forests, rivers, and strange mountains that glowed faintly. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. Elias smiled to himself. Another world waiting to be understood, he whispered. But beauty in space often came with danger. As he moved into the atmosphere, his ship suddenly shook. A hidden magnetic storm surrounded the moon. The ship's systems failed one after another. Elias struggled with the controls, but the storm was too strong. The ship fell like a stone. The crash landing was rough. Fire burned along the edges of the craft, metal tore, and the ground shook as the vessel slid across a wide field. When the dust finally settled, the ship was broken. Elias survived with only a few scratches, but the damage was clear. He was stranded. He climbed out, looked around, and took a deep breath of the fresh air. It was breathable, which was good, but he felt very alone. His radio was broken, and help was far away. For the first few days, Elias focused on survival. He built a small shelter near the wreck, collected food from the plants, and purified water from a nearby stream. He had been trained for this. Humanity's explorers always carried survival knowledge in their minds. One evening, while exploring deeper into the forest, he heard a strange sound. It was high-pitched like the cries of birds, but sharper. He followed it and reached a clearing. What he saw left him speechless. Tiny figures, no taller than his hand, were running in panic. They looked like small people with arms, legs, and faces, but their bodies glowed faintly in the moonlight. They were dressed in woven clothes of leaf and crystal, carrying tiny tools and shining sticks. Behind them, large insect-like creatures, each the size of a dog, chased them with clicking jaws. Elias blinked. "Tiny aliens?" he whispered in disbelief. The little people screamed as the predators closed in. Without thinking, Elias rushed forward. He picked up a heavy branch and swung it with all his strength. The first insectoid monster flew across the clearing and hit a rock with a crack. The others froze for a moment, then turned toward him, hissing. Elias stood tall, towering like a giant above the scene. The insect creatures charged, but he was faster. He kicked one away, crushed another with the branch, and used his strength to scare the rest off. The predators fled back into the dark forest. Silence filled the clearing. The tiny aliens looked up at Elias with wide eyes. Their glowing bodies trembled, and they whispered to one another in a musical language he could not understand. For a moment they seemed unsure whether to fear him or thank him. Elias slowly knelt down, lowering himself so he would not appear so frightening. He placed the broken branch on the ground and raised his empty hands. "It's okay," he said, gently. "I won't hurt you." One of the small figures stepped forward. This one wore a small crown of crystal, and the others treated him with respect. Perhaps he was their leader. The little leader raised his hand, and the others calmed. Then, to Elias's surprise, the leader spoke in broken but clear words. "Big one, protector?" Elias blinked. He had not expected them to know any human words, but perhaps their species had advanced translators or some strange gift. He smiled kindly. "Yes, I protected you. You are safe now." The little aliens gathered around him, touching his boots, his hands, even his clothing. To them, he was enormous, like a walking mountain. Some bowed, others clapped in joy. Elias chuckled softly. "I guess I'm your giant friend now." The leader gave a respectful nod and spoke again, his voice full of awe. "You saved Tharlians. You are Guardian." So that was their name. The Tharlians. The Tharlians invited Elias to follow them. Curious, he walked carefully, making sure not to step on them by accident. They led him through a hidden path into the roots of an enormous tree. Inside was a glowing village unlike anything he had ever seen. Tiny houses carved from crystal and stone lined the paths. Bridges made of woven grass stretched between roots. Water flowed through miniature channels. Hundreds of Tharlians peeked, out staring at Elias with wide eyes. Elias looked around in wonder. "This is incredible," he whispered. The leader pointed at a raised platform and motioned for Elias to sit. When he did, the entire village gathered around. The leader raised his shining staff and declared, "The Guardian has come. He saved us from the hunters." The crowd cheered, their tiny voices echoing through the great tree roots. Elias could not help but smile. Over the next hours, they offered him glowing fruit, crystal water, and warm songs. Though he did not understand all of their words, he understood their meaning. They were grateful. For the first time since his crash, Elias felt less alone. As night fell, Elias sat near their village, listening to the Tharlians sing. He looked up at the stars, thinking of his broken ship. His chances of rescue were small, but now he had a new purpose. He had become a protector of the small. The Tharlians needed him, and he could not abandon them. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a story stranger than anything he had imagined. Morning on the tiny Tharlian village came with a gentle glow. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopy of the enormous tree, casting sparkling patterns on the roots and crystal pathways. Elias woke near the village center, lying on a bed of soft moss the Tharlians had prepared. Though small and simple, it was comfortable, and he felt strangely at home among the tiny people he had just saved. As he stood, stretching his long limbs carefully so he would not crush anything, the Tharlian leader appeared. "Guardian," he said, bowing slightly, "you must see our village fully. You saved us. You are now honored." Elias smiled and nodded. "I would like that. Show me." The leader gestured to a path that wound through the tree roots. Elias followed, stepping carefully and holding out his hand to help any Tharlian that might need it. They moved like a flowing river, guiding him past their homes, gardens, and workshops. Every structure amazed him. Houses carved from crystal and tiny stones shone like jewels. Bridges made from woven vines twisted between roots. Small lanterns of glowing fungus lit the pathways. Even the water channels were carefully constructed to provide clean drinking water to every home. "They are incredible," Elias murmured. "How can they make all this by themselves?" The leader nodded. "Tharlians are small but clever. We build with what we have. Giants help sometimes, but cleverness matters more than size." As they walked, children ran past, their laughter ringing like tiny bells. They waved to Elias, shouting, "Guardian! Guardian!" in the musical Tharlian language. Elias bent down and smiled at them. He waved back, careful not to frighten them with his size. Some elders came out to greet him. They bowed respectfully, touching his boots or brushing the tips of his fingers with their hands. Elias felt humbled. These tiny beings had nothing, yet they treated him with dignity. Humanity had sent explorers across the stars, but Elias had never met anyone like the Tharlians. "Why are your people so small?" Elias asked quietly to the leader. The leader tilted his head. "Small in body, but strong in mind. Our size keeps us safe from most threats, but not all. Before you came, we had no protector. The hunters are always near." Elias remembered the insectoid predators. "I won't leave you. If there's danger, I will fight." The leader's eyes glimmered with gratitude. "You are more than protector. You are honored among Tharlians." The leader then took Elias to a large platform at the heart of the village. From there, Elias could see the entire settlement. Hundreds of tiny homes clustered together, gardens glowing softly, and children playing near the water channels. The village seemed alive with joy, despite the constant threat of predators outside. "This is amazing," Elias said, looking at the intricate details. "I have never seen a civilization like this." The leader nodded proudly. "We survive by working together. We are small but united. That is our strength." Elias spent the next hours exploring the village. He watched the Tharlians at work. Some were weaving crystals into small tools. Others harvested glowing fruits from the forest. Children practiced balancing on the thin bridges, laughing when they slipped. Every task showed intelligence and care. Elias realized that size did not measure strength or courage. At midday, the leader gathered Elias and a small group of Tharlians. "We must teach Guardian about our ways," he said. "You are one of us now, in spirit. You must understand." They began with their history. Through gestures and simple words, Elias learned that the Tharlians had once lived freely, but hunters, giant insects and other predators, had forced them into hiding. Their villages had been destroyed many times, but cleverness and unity had kept their species alive. Elias was deeply impressed. He had traveled to many planets, but he had never seen a species so determined to survive against impossible odds. As the day continued, the leader introduced him to a few Tharlian artisans. One tiny creature demonstrated weaving crystal threads into a durable rope. Another showed how to grow glowing fruits in precise patterns for maximum nutrition. Elias marveled at their efficiency. He realized he could help them, not by replacing their skills but by lending strength and protection when needed. While walking through the village, Elias noticed Lyri, a small female Tharlian with eyes brighter than any gem. She moved gracefully, helping children gather fruit and directing others in their work. There was something confident and clever about her. She noticed Elias and bowed politely. The leader noticed Elias's glance and whispered, "Lyri is wise and brave. She watches and learns. Guardian, you will find she is special." Elias only nodded, unsure what that meant, but he felt a connection already. As evening approached, the village prepared a celebration in Elias's honor. Tiny lanterns were lit along the paths, and the Tharlians sang in harmony. Elias was the center of attention, and he felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had only done what any human would do, protect those in danger. But to the Tharlians, he was a hero, almost a godlike figure. During the feast, he ate carefully, picking up tiny fruits and sampling small bites. The Tharlians watched curiously as he ate. Laughter and gentle music filled the air. Elias realized that though he was enormous, he could still participate in their culture. Respect and trust, he thought, were bigger than size. Later, the leader approached Elias privately. "Guardian, you are not only protector but teacher now. Your presence changes everything. We trust you with our lives." Elias felt a deep weight in his chest. "I will not fail you," he promised. "I'll stay as long as you need me." Thule. Leader nodded solemnly. "Tomorrow you will meet our council. They will ask questions, but for now, rest. You deserve it." Elias lay down that night near the village center. He looked up through the massive tree branches to the stars above. He thought of his broken ship, of the vast universe he had explored, and of the tiny beings who had now become his responsibility. He realized that this world, small and delicate, was a place where humanity could shine, not with weapons or machines, but with courage, compassion, and intelligence. He had defended the Tharlians once, but he would protect them many times in the days ahead. And somewhere deep in his mind, he wondered what it would mean to become more than a protector. Could a giant human truly belong in the life of such tiny beings? The thought was strange, but he did not push it away. For now, he would focus on learning their ways, understanding their lives, and preparing for the unknown challenges ahead. As he drifted to sleep under the glowing lanterns of the Tharlian village, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. The human in him was ready to face anything, and the Tharlians, small yet brave, would teach him lessons no human culture ever could. Tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more adventures, and perhaps even surprises he could not imagine. But tonight, Elias, the Guardian, rested among friends, knowing that he had found a place where he truly belonged. The morning sun filtered softly through the vast canopy of the Tharlian village, casting a golden glow over the crystal houses and woven bridges. Captain Elias woke with a sense of purpose. Each day among the tiny Tharlians made him more aware of how much they relied on him and how much he cared for their safety. After a quick breakfast of glowing fruit and crystal water, the Tharlian leader approached him. "Guardian," he said, his voice filled with respect. "Today you will meet the council. They wish to speak with you." Elias nodded, following the leader carefully. The council was a circle of elders, all wearing tiny crowns and intricate robes of crystal and leaf. They were smaller than Elias, yet their presence felt commanding. The leader introduced him with pride. "This is Elias the Guardian. He saved our village. He defends our people." The council members bowed slightly, their tiny hands extended in welcome. One elder stepped forward. "Guardian, we thank you for your courage. You saved our lives when all seemed lost. But we must ask, will you remain with us?" Elias looked around at the little faces staring up at him. I will," he said carefully. "I do not know how long, but I will protect your village as long as I can." A small murmur spread through the council. The leader nodded approvingly. "Your presence is already part of our lives. You are not only protector, but also part of our community. You must learn our ways fully, Guardian. Only then will you truly belong." Elias smiled, feeling honored. "I want to learn." The leader motioned for him to follow. They walked to a raised platform at the village's center. There, a Tharlian ceremony was underway, a traditional gathering that honored those who defended the community. Elias watched in fascination as the Tharlians sang in their melodic language, their tiny voices blending into a beautiful harmony. Then the leader turned to Elias. "Guardian, you have done more than defend. You have shown wisdom, patience, and respect. You have proven yourself worthy of a bond, a sacred connection between you and one of our people." Elias frowned slightly. "A bond?" The leader nodded. "In our culture, the greatest honor a protector can receive is to be paired with a life companion. It is not marriage as humans know it. It is a symbol of trust, loyalty, and unity. The council has chosen one to join with you." Elias's eyes widened. He had expected honor, perhaps gifts, or even a festival in his name. But a companion, assigned? The idea was strange, almost unbelievable. "You want me to have a companion?" "Yes," the leader said calmly. "One who will teach you more of our ways and grow with you in spirit. She is clever, brave, and wise. She has been chosen because she understands the value of your strength and the protection you provide." Elias felt a mixture of surprise and hesitation. He had spent his life among humans where bonds were chosen freely. This cultural practice was entirely new, and he did not know how to respond. The leader smiled at his confusion. "Do not fear, Guardian. This is honor. It is not forced, it is sacred. She will guide you, and you will guide her. Together you will protect our people and learn from each other." The leader called for Larry, the Tharlian woman Elias had noticed earlier. She stepped forward gracefully, her eyes sparkling like gems. She bowed politely. "Guardian," she said in her gentle voice, "I am honored to be paired with you." Elias was stunned. He had never expected such a situation. I don't know what to say," he admitted. Leary smiled kindly. "Do not worry. This is our tradition. We will understand each other and we will learn together." Elias took a deep breath, realizing that his respect for their culture required him to honor this gift. He nodded. "All right, I accept." The Tharlian leader clapped his hands, and a cheer rose from the villagers. Tiny voices called out words Elias could not understand, but the joy and celebration were clear. The villagers danced along the crystal pathways, their small feet moving in rhythm. For the rest of the day, Leary guided Elias through the village. She taught him the ways of the Tharlians, how to move gently without harming their delicate structures, how to understand their signals, and how to use his size and strength wisely to help without intimidating. At first, Elias found it challenging. Every step required care. Every action needed thought. He accidentally crushed a tiny flower garden and felt terrible. though Leary gently reassured him. "You will learn," she said, smiling. "We trust you. That is enough." As they walked together, Elias began to see why the chief had chosen her. Leary was clever, confident, and brave. She seemed unafraid of his enormous size and even offered ideas to improve defenses against predators. Her intelligence impressed him, and he began to feel a sense of partnership forming between them. The pair spent hours exploring the outer edges of the village. Elias learned about the Tharlian fields of glowing fruits, the miniature water canals, and the tiny workshops where the villagers created their tools. Leary explained how each structure had a purpose, often designed to be efficient and clever despite their small scale. "You see, Guardian," Leary said as they paused on a high root platform, "our size makes us vulnerable, but our minds are sharp. We survive because we think differently. You help because of your strength. Together we are stronger." Elias looked down at the tiny village below and nodded. "I see that now. You are more than clever. You are resilient. I am lucky to be here with you." Leary smiled, her eyes twinkling. "And we are lucky to have you. Our people trust you, and I will help you understand our ways." That is the bond the chief spoke of. Evening fell, and the village lit up with glowing lanterns. Elias and Leary returned to the central platform where a small feast awaited them. Tiny dishes were prepared filled with glowing fruits, nuts, and water from crystal cups. The Tharlians watched carefully as Elias ate, their small faces reflecting admiration and curiosity. During the meal, the chief approached Elias and Leary. "You two will face challenges," he said. "There are dangers beyond our trees. Other creatures may come to harm us, but together you will be ready. You are now a pair, united in trust and purpose." Elias felt the weight of the responsibility, but also a sense of belonging he had never felt before. The idea of having a companion from another species was strange, yet he could see the wisdom in it. Leary's guidance, knowledge, and courage complemented his strength. Together they could face whatever dangers awaited them. Night fell, and the village quieted. Elias lay near the central platform, Leary beside him. Not too close, he did not want to be intimidating, but close enough to feel her presence. The Tharlians settled into their homes, tiny lights glowing throughout the village. Elias thought about his life before the Tharlians. He had traveled to many worlds, faced storms, and survived alone. Yet here, among creatures smaller than his hand, he felt a new kind of responsibility, a responsibility to protect, to learn, and to grow alongside them. Leary turned to him and whispered, "Guardian, the bond is not just tradition, it is trust. And trust is the strongest force of all." Elias nodded slowly, understanding. He had learned many lessons in his life, but this was different. This bond was not about size, strength, or survival alone. It was about respect, connection, and the courage to stand together. As he looked up at the stars through the massive tree branches, Elias realized that his journey with the Tharlians had only begun. Danger would come, challenges would rise, but with Leary and the villagers he had a new purpose, a purpose greater than any he had known before. And in that quiet night, beneath glowing lanterns and the stars above, Captain Elias, the Guardian, felt the beginnings of a friendship and partnership that would shape not only his fate, but the fate of the tiny world he now called home. The morning air in the Tharlian village was calm, almost peaceful, but Elias sensed that something was different. As he walked with Leary along the crystal pathways, he noticed the villagers moving with quiet urgency, their tiny hands working, faster than usual. "Something is wrong," Elias said, his deep voice low. Leary nodded. "News came from the outer forest. The Kavor are coming." Elias froze. The Kavor were a brutal species of large insect-like raiders known for attacking smaller settlements. Their size and strength had destroyed many villages before. The thought of them approaching made Elias tighten his fists. He had trained for danger, but this was different. The Tharlians were tiny and the Kavor were enormous predators. "We must prepare," Elias said. The villagers immediately began working under Elias's direction. He instructed them to use their small size to their advantage, creating traps and barriers that only tiny creatures could navigate easily. Leary guided him to understand the most vulnerable spots in the village, showing him which bridges, homes, and channels could be used to defend against intruders. "We cannot face them head-on," Leary explained, "but we can use cleverness and strategy. The Kavor underestimate small creatures. They think they are weak. That is our strength." Elias nodded. "Then we will use their arrogance against them." For hours, the village buzzed with preparation. Tiny bridges were rigged to collapse under weight, water channels were redirected to create slippery paths, and crystal traps were carefully positioned. Elias moved with care, placing larger stones and branches as obstacles, while Leary coordinated the Tharlians to work together seamlessly. By evening, the village was ready. Tiny sentries watched from high roots and crystal towers, their glowing eyes scanning the forest. Elias stood at the center, feeling the weight of responsibility on his broad shoulders. The Kavor would come tonight, and the survival of the Tharlians depended on his courage and planning. As night fell, the forest grew quiet. Then a faint rumble echoed through the trees. The Kavor were near. Large, shadowy forms emerged from the darkness, clicking and hissing as they advanced. Elias could see their sharp mandibles glinting under the moonlight. "Stay calm," Elias whispered to Leary. "We are ready." The first Kavor stumbled into a trap, a carefully rigged net that dropped from the roots above. It struggled, twisting and turning while the Tharlians cheered quietly from their hidden spots. More Kavor approached, but the village was a maze. Slippery paths, falling branches, and crystal obstacles slowed them down. Elias moved among them like a giant guardian, using his strength to block the largest raiders. He lifted fallen trees, threw heavy rocks, and swung his arms with precision, careful not to harm any Tharlian. Leary guided him from above, shouting instructions in her musical voice. "You there! Push the Kavor into the channel," she called. Elias obeyed. With a powerful sweep, he knocked a group of raiders into a water channel, where the current carried them away from the village. The Tharlians cheered as their enemies struggled to escape. Despite the chaos, Elias remained focused. Each Kavor that entered the village faced careful traps, clever diversions, and Elias's massive strength. The tiny villagers were not just hiding, they were fighting smartly, proving that intelligence could outmatch brute force. Leary moved alongside him, her small hands pointing out weak spots, directing the Tharlians to exploit every opportunity. She climbed onto a branch and dropped crystal shards onto an advancing raider, causing it to stumble. Elias smiled, impressed by her courage and ingenuity. Hours passed. The Kavor were relentless, but Elias and the Tharlians fought together like a single organism. Every time a raider approached, they anticipated its moves, using teamwork to defend their home. The giant human and the tiny villagers became an unstoppable force, blending strength, strategy, and cleverness. Finally, as dawn approached, the remaining Kavor realized they could not win. Exhausted and injured, they retreated into the forest, leaving the Tharlian village untouched. The villagers cheered, their tiny voices echoing across the roots and crystal homes. Elias, though tired, felt a surge of pride. Leary approached him, her small hand touching his arm. "Guardian, you did it. We survived because of you." Elias shook his head. "No, Leary. You and your people survived because of your cleverness. I only helped." The villagers gathered around, praising both Elias and Leary. Children climbed onto his boots, elders bowed in respect, and the council members whispered among themselves, nodding approval. Elias realized that this victory was not just about strength. It was about partnership. The bond between him and the Tharlians had grown stronger through the fight. After the celebration, the leader called Elias and Leary to the central platform. "Guardian," he said, "today you have proven yourself not only as protector, but as part of our people. You fought not as a giant alone, but alongside us. This bond, this partnership, is stronger than we imagined." Elias felt humbled. He had faced many dangers in his life, but never had he seen such courage in such small beings. The Tharlians had taught him that size was meaningless when determination and intelligence were combined. Leary looked at him with pride. Guardian, this battle shows that we are stronger together. You are our protector, but you are also our friend, and that makes all the difference. Elias nodded, feeling a deep connection to this tiny world and its people. He realized that the fight had changed him, just as it had strengthened the Tharlians. He was no longer just an explorer stranded on a strange moon. He was their guardian, their partner, and a symbol of hope. That night, the village settled into quiet. Tiny lanterns glowed along the pathways, illuminating the crystal homes. Elias and Larry walked through the village together, checking the defenses and ensuring that everything was in order. You handled that well, Larry said. I never doubted you, but seeing you fight with strategy as well as strength, it is remarkable. Elias smiled. I learned from you. You showed me the ways of your people. I could not have done it alone. They walked to a high platform overlooking the village. From there, Elias could see the entire settlement, the tiny homes, the gardens, and the paths. The forest beyond was still dark and mysterious, but he knew that together they could face anything. Leary placed her small hand on his arm. Guardian, this bond, it is more than tradition. It is trust, respect, and friendship. Together, we are stronger than any enemy. Elias looked down at her, realizing that she was right. The connection between them, between human and Tharlian, was powerful. It was proof that even the smallest beings could make a difference, and that humanity's courage could inspire hope in the most unexpected places. As dawn broke, Elias stood at the center of the village, watching the tiny Tharlians resume their daily routines. Children played, elders worked, and the community thrived once more. He knew that challenges would come again, but he also knew that with Leary and the villagers by his side, they would always survive. The battle had been won, but the lessons remained. Courage, intelligence, and partnership could overcome even the most formidable enemies. And as Elias looked to the horizon, he felt a new determination. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but here on this tiny moon, humanity had made a difference. Captain Elias, the Guardian, had not only defended the Tharlians, but had become a symbol of hope and unity. A reminder that even one human, when guided by courage and respect, could change the fate of an entire species. The sun rose slowly over the Tharlian village, casting golden light over the tiny homes and crystal pathways. The forest beyond remained quiet, but Elias knew that danger could return at any time. Yet the mood in the village was calm. The battle against the Kavor had proven the villagers' courage and their human guardians' power. Together, they had survived. Elias walked with Leary through the village, observing the bustling activity. Children laughed as they ran across bridges. Elders tended gardens, and tiny artisans carried out their tasks with care. Everything seemed alive, full of energy and hope. Look at them, Elias said softly. They are thriving. I have never seen a community so determined to survive. Leary nodded, smiling. They are small, but strong. They have hope because of you, Guardian. You reminded them that even when faced with danger, they are not alone. Elias felt a deep satisfaction. He had come to this strange moon as a stranded explorer, unsure of what to expect. Now he was part of a society that respected and trusted him. He had been given an unusual honor, paired with Leary, his mini-wife in Tharlian tradition, not as humans understood it, but as a sacred symbol of partnership and trust. The village leader approached them, his crystal crown glowing faintly. Guardian Leary, he said. Today we honor not just the victory against the Kavor, but the bond that now unites human and Tharlian. Your partnership shows all Tharlians that courage and wisdom are stronger than size or fear. Elias nodded, humbled by the praise. I only did what I could. Your people's intelligence and bravery made this possible. I was only the hand, not the mind, behind the victory. Leary smiled and placed her small hand on his arm. Guardian, together we were both hand and mind. That is why we succeeded. You protected with strength. I guided with knowledge. That is what this bond represents. The villagers gathered for a ceremony in the central platform, celebrating Elias and Leary. Lanterns glowed softly, illuminating the faces of hundreds of tiny beings. The air was filled with music, laughter, and the chatter of happy voices. The Tharlian leader addressed the crowd. Today we celebrate not just survival but unity. Let this day mark the beginning of a new era for our people, where we honor courage, wisdom, and the bond between our guardian and Larry. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. Humanity's presence, he realized, was not only about strength or tools, but about courage, compassion, and the willingness to protect life, even when it was tiny and fragile. His actions had inspired hope, and that was a powerful gift. After the celebration, Elias and Larry walked to a high platform overlooking the Uaid forest. The village sprawled beneath them, small but vibrant, thriving because they had faced their fears and embraced courage. "Guardian," Leary said, her eyes reflecting the sunlight, "I know the Kavor may return someday. But now, our people know they can survive, and we will face whatever comes together." Elias looked at the horizon, where dark shapes of distant mountains loomed. "Yes," he said. "I will remain here as long as you need me. Your people are safe because of their courage and cleverness, and I will protect that." Leary's small hand rested on his arm again. "Guardian, the bond is not just tradition. It is trust, respect, and friendship. Through this, our people will grow stronger, and you, human, have taught us that courage and heart matter as much as size and power." Elias smiled. "And you have taught me that wisdom and careful thought are as important as strength. I have learned more from your people than I ever imagined I could." That day, the village began to repair and improve its defenses. The Kavor had taught them valuable lessons about strategy, traps, and vigilance. Elias supervised the work, careful not to disrupt the Tharlian way of life. Larry guided him, pointing out small improvements and clever adjustments. Together, they made the village safer than ever before. As night fell, the village settled into quiet activity. Tiny lanterns glowed along paths illuminating the crystal homes. Children slept safely in their beds, elders shared stories, and the village seemed at peace. Elias stood at the edge of the platform, watching over them. He felt a profound connection to this world, a sense of purpose he had never known. "Guardian," Larry whispered, coming to stand beside him, "look at what we have built together. A home, a bond, a legacy. This is humanity at its best. Not dominating, but protecting, learning, and inspiring." Elias nodded. "I see that now. The universe is full of challenges, but it is also full of life worth protecting. And the Tharlians are proof of what courage and trust can achieve." Suddenly, a small child ran up to Elias holding a glowing crystal. "Guardian, for you!" the child exclaimed. Elias bent down carefully, smiling as he accepted the tiny gift. It was a symbol of gratitude, innocence, and the bond between human and Tharlian. Elias felt a lump in his throat. Though he was a giant, among them their respect and trust made him feel small in a good way, small enough to see the importance of every life, every choice, every act of courage. Over the following days, life in the village became routine but never dull. Elias trained the Tharlians in defensive strategies suitable for their size. Leary continued to guide him, teaching new methods and explaining Tharlian history, culture, and philosophy. Elias learned how their tiny society worked in harmony, how every individual contributed, and how small actions could make enormous differences. One evening, the leader called Elias and Leary to a quiet spot near the village center. "Guardian Leary," he said, "you have shown humanity's true spirit. You have taught our people courage, compassion, and cleverness. Let this bond stand as a symbol, not just to Tharlians, but to all who may come after, that humans can be protectors, friends, and heroes even to the smallest beings in the universe." Elias felt a swell of pride. He had faced storms, predators, and isolation in space, but nothing compared to the joy of seeing a species grow stronger because of his courage and respect. He realized that true heroism was not about power or fame, it was about protecting others, standing together, and inspiring hope. Lyri stepped closer. Guardian, the future is ours to shape. We have faced danger, learned from it, and built trust. And together, we will continue to protect this village and our way of life. Elias looked down at the tiny village below, their homes glowing softly under the lanterns. Yes, he said, we will protect it. And maybe in doing so, humanity will leave a small mark on the universe, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The two of them stood silently, watching the stars above the towering trees. The universe was vast and unpredictable, full of dangers and mysteries, but Elias no longer feared it. With Lyri, with the Tharlians, and with courage in his heart, he knew that they could face anything together. And so Captain Elias the Guardian became more than a human lost on a distant moon. He became a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. His actions ensured that the Tharlians would survive, thrive, and remember the giant who defended them, not through fear, but through respect, bravery, and heart. In the glow of the tiny village under the vast stars, Elias finally understood the meaning of humanity's legacy: to protect, to inspire, and to rise to challenges that no one else would dare face. The Tharlians slept peacefully, their tiny hearts full of hope. And Elias, the Guardian, watched over them, knowing that no matter how small or large, courage and kindness could make a difference in any corner of the universe.